You smell that? It smells like game day. It smells like a Clark show is loading. It is an Indiana Fever game day. Top of the morning. I cannot wait for this Indiana Fever matchup versus the Toronto Timberwolves. Video, you already know how that goes. It is an Indiana Fever game day, and Stephanie White might be up to some of her old slew of tricks. And I think that could be more than detrimental to the team. We got to get into it. Welcome to... Now, we know Caitlin Clark is going against somebody who absolutely adores her and somebody we wish was coaching her. Sandy Brondello. Sandy, we love you, girl. We all wish Sandy Brondello was the one coaching Caitlin Clark and not this bonehead we have in the head coach. Turn this into the Kelsey Mitchell show. Caitlin Clark has earned the right to play her style. She gave Stephanie White about 10 games to play her way, her style, the Stephanie White boring snooze fest. Nobody want to watch it. Just horrific puke basketball style.
There's a moment from the Portland Fire game that explains everything you need to know about the tension building around Caitlin Clark and Indiana Fever basketball right now. Late in the first quarter, the Fever are winning. Indiana is up. Good things are happening. Then, Stephanie White pulls Clark, Aaliyah Boston, and Lexi Hull off the floor at the same time. All three of them sit down together. By the end of that quarter, the lead is gone. The deficit shows up fast. There's an animated exchange on the bench. White's explanation is straightforward. Workload management. She's protecting her stars. But here's what that moment actually reveals. There's a fundamental disagreement happening about how to play this game, and it's playing out in real time on the sidelines. Stephanie White is in her second season running the Fever, and right now, she's coaching the most offensively dominant player in the WNBA. Caitlin Clark is averaging roughly 24 points and 9 assists. She leads the entire league in assists and sits third in scoring. The numbers aren't even close. When Clark controls the offense, when the game is built around her gravity and her decision-making, Indiana becomes one of the highest-scoring teams in the league. Defenses have to respect her from 30 feet out. That creates clean looks for everybody else. But there's a different philosophy emerging from that bench. Stephanie White wants to balance the load. She wants to rest Clark. She wants to run a system where the offense doesn't live and die by one player's usage rate. And from a coaching standpoint, from a durability standpoint, that argument isn't crazy. Last year, Clark dealt with injury. The season before, she had a major rookie campaign. These are real conversations about player health and longevity. Except here's the problem. When you build your entire offense around the most talented player on the court, when you spend that capital to generate advantages, and then you sit her down in a game you're winning, what you're actually doing is wasting the advantage you created. That's what happened in Portland. That's what happened repeatedly enough that a whole segment of the fan base is asking a very specific question. At the moment the game gets tight, at the moment September turns into April and everything matters, does this offense run through Clark or does it run through the system? And the timing of this storyline makes it even sharper, because the Fever are about to walk into one of the most interesting tests of the season. Standing on the opposite bench tonight is Sandy Brondello. Brondello just won a championship with the New York Liberty in 2024. The Liberty let her leave anyway. Toronto, a brand new expansion franchise, handed her the keys to their program on a contract reported above $1 million a year. She's a two-time champion. She's a former coach of the year, and she's already got Toronto at 5-4. This isn't some expansion team flexing. This is a prepared, coached-up basketball team walking into Gainbridge Fieldhouse. What makes this a measuring stick game instead of a tune-up is the person designing the coverages on the Toronto sideline. Brondello has spent her entire career figuring out how to take great scores and make them uncomfortable. She will throw looks at Clark that are designed to speed her up. She will bait turnovers. She will try to turn the Fever offense into a turnover machine, and she has the personnel to do it. Toronto's backcourt is the $1 million backcourt for a reason. Brittany Sykes was an all-star in 2025. She's averaging 20 points and a steal. She's a multiple-time all-defensive selection. Marina Mabrey is a volume scorer. She can get hot from anywhere on the floor. These are not names you wave off. So this becomes a chess match. If White outcoaches a championship mind, the entire conversation around her coaching staff changes. If she gets outcoached by a coach she herself admired, the noise about her philosophy only gets louder. That brings us to what actually has to happen for Indiana to win this game. The first piece is obvious, but it matters more than you think. The ball has to stay in Clark's hands. The two-player game between Clark and Boston is the most dangerous action this offense owns. When Clark breaks the defense down and creates a clean look under the basket, when she manufactures an open shot at the rim, those opportunities have to convert. This team has been wasteful. Layups are falling off the rim. Open chances are becoming defeats. Every miss off a Clark creation is a point she made disappear. Against a team as disciplined as Toronto, those misses are the margin. The second element is discipline on the perimeter. Sykes lives to attack downhill. She wants to get to the free throw line. Mabrey is a volume scorer, looking for her rhythm. Indiana has fouled constantly this season. You cannot foul your way through a Toronto team that wants exactly that. Every whistle does two things. It gives a dangerous scorer free points, and it puts your own defenders in foul trouble. The game plan has to be contain them without sending them to the stripe. That's the difference between a close game and a blowout. The third thing is bench production. Indiana's wing depth is thin. Sophie Cunningham and Lexi Hull are the depth options. Hull is working back from a preseason hamstring issue. Tasha Harris is still recovering from a knee injury that cost her last season. Beyond that, you're leaning on Raven Johnson, a rookie drafted to defend, not to create. Toronto's bench is completely different. Brondello has 4 solid rotation players sitting behind her starters. When those units check in, Indiana cannot afford a dead period where nothing is happening offensively. The lead disappears in those moments. It just evaporates. Now, the reality check on all of this. Stephanie White is not a clueless caretaker. Last season, when Clark sat out with a groin injury, Stephanie dragged this team all the way to a winner-take-all Game 5 in the semifinals against Las Vegas. That is not luck. That is coaching. The workload management argument has substance. A coach who burns out her superstar chasing a September win and then loses her in the playoffs is the coach who actually failed. Reasonable people can defend resting her in October. The disagreement is about when and how. The Portland moment wasn't October reasoning. That was pulling your 3 best players in the first quarter of a game you're winning. That's the moment that confirmed the fear. The fear was never that Stephanie White is a bad coach. The fear was that she'll outthink the situation at the exact moment she should get out of the way. So what has to actually happen for this to feel resolved? Start with Clark. Put the ball in her hands and trust it. Run the read and react flow where everyone else plays off her gravity. Stop forcing the offense into a slower, safer rhythm. The fans didn't show up for that version of basketball. The ticket holders want Clark cooking. They want the Fever to play at a pace that takes advantage of what she creates. Second, execution in the paint. This is where the film gets honest. Clark is going to create looks. Those have to go in. Boston, Hull, Mitchell, whoever catches it down low with nobody home, those have to be makes. You don't get to waste the advantage your point guard manufactured and then act surprised when the game stays close. Third, stay out of foul trouble. Sykes is baiting you. Mabrey is hunting rhythm. Your job is containment without penalties. Feet and positioning, hands straight up. Help early. Wall off the lane. Keep them off the line. Free points are exactly how an expansion team steals a game it has no business winning. Fourth, somebody off the bench creates. With Hull's hamstring situation and Harris still working back, the margin for error is basically zero. Cunningham gave you closing moments before. The Fever need that version of her. Or a young player like Raven Johnson steps up and gives you something real in 4 or 5 minutes. The bench cannot be a dead period. Now, the last element is the one nobody can control except Stephanie White herself. Get out of Caitlin Clark's way. Stop managing every possession like she's going to break if she plays 35 minutes. Stop calling timeouts to slow down momentum. Stop sitting your 3 best players in the first quarter of a game you're winning. The fans aren't confused about what they're watching. The players aren't confused. The only confusion is coming from the sideline. If White trusts her offense, if she lets Clark play, if she keeps Brondello from getting into any rhythm with her coverages, the Fever win this game by double digits. It's that simple and that complicated at the same time. Because here's the thing about measuring stick games. They're called that because they tell you something about who you actually are. If Indiana wins this game with Clark running the show, with the offense moving at the pace that made this team dangerous, with players executing in the paint and avoiding fouls, then the entire conversation changes. The doubt gets quieter. The philosophy gets validated. The season feels like it's heading somewhere real. If Indiana loses, then the fans have to pick their answer. Was it Stephanie White outthinking herself in a crucial moment? Was it the players not executing, missing layups, fouling constantly? Or was it Sandy Brondello, a championship coach, out-coaching the Fever staff with a team that didn't exist 6 months ago? You cannot choose all three. One of those things has to be true, and whichever one you believe explains everything about this roster and this season going forward. So pick one, defend it, because that answer tells you whether this team is built to compete or whether it's built to be managed. And that's the real story happening underneath the game tonight. It's not about expansion teams or tournament positioning. It's about whether a franchise with the most talented player in basketball is willing to get out of her own way and let her cook. That's what we're actually watching.